Good evening, everyone. I hope this finds you all well. I just wanted to take a quick moment and record a quick video on how to make the line chart that we had for our week 6 quiz from last week. I've been talking with a number of you over the last couple of days. I've been going through this all with you one by one. I thought it might be worth the time to put together a quick video showing you how to do each of these things step by step so you can see this. Before we get started, I just wanted to make a quick mention that every single version of Excel is slightly different, that there's little nuances. So if your specific version of Excel looks a little bit different than mine, don't worry too much. Usually speaking, the labels are the same, but the buttons look a little bit different. And sometimes you might have to use a drop down instead of a button. So don't worry about that too much. If there is something that you still get stuck on after this, please know that you can always come to me, send me an email, and we can work through the specific step that you get stuck on as well. For now, though, I thought we'd go back through and recreate the tab that I sent through to you in the exemplar document where we made a chart for Bangladesh. This is how it's going to end up looking in the end, but I thought I'd take you through it all from scratch and start with making a pivot table for the first time. So as we've gone through in previous weeks, you can start by clicking anywhere in the Excel spreadsheet on the Data tab of the Global Terrorism Database, going to Insert, and clicking on the Pivot Table button here. For this, we're going to start with a new worksheet, so everything's starting fresh and clear. We're going to hit OK, and that'll create a brand new tab for us in Microsoft Excel. As you can see, this can take a couple of seconds just to get going, depending on how much your computer is doing in the background, particularly because this is a big data file. Because in this example, we're going to be looking at how both the number of terrorist attacks and the number of people killed from terrorist attacks in Bangladesh changed from year to year, I like to start off with the easy steps first. And the first easy step to begin with is including the year variable. And for this, we'll drag it into the columns. This will involve us making an extra step a little bit later on the process, but by starting with this and putting it wide, making the data go along this way, which is called wide data, it'll be easier if you're creating a data set using lots and lots of countries. You can see this in particular if we add in the country underscore text variable to the rows box here. And as we can see here, we've got many more countries than we do years of data here. So this is one of the reasons why it makes a lot of sense to make the year go across wide and make the countries go down in this long direction. So for this, we're going to be starting off with Bangladesh. And so rather than having all of the data for each individual country showing up here, one of the things I like to do is to keep it nice and simple and click on this downward arrow here so we can filter. In this case, because we're dealing with Bangladesh, we don't have to scroll too far to find it, but let's pretend we're using a country from further on down the alphabet. One of the easiest ways to do this is to start typing in the beginnings of the country's name. In this case, we're going to write in BANG, and that brings us up to Bangladesh. We're going to unselect everything else, so we can see in the spreadsheet behind us that all the other countries disappear. We're going to check the button for Bangladesh, and then we're going to X out. I mean, as we can see here, we now just have the data limited to revealing for Bangladesh. The first thing that we're going to start with is the number of terrorist attacks that occur in the country. To do this, we can use any underscore txt variable. Because when you have words here, it's impossible to multiply an A by a B. So because of that, all it's going to do is count up the number of rows that you get for any text variable that you put in. A quick way to test this is to take region underscore txt, put in the values box. You can see the first three numbers that we get are 74, 161, and 17. To double check that this is the case, and one of the things I'm a big fan of is testing these things, is to find another underscore txt variable, put that in and see whether we get the same numbers. Oh, and we didn't get the same numbers for that one. Oh, because that's a variable isn't available for everything. So let's use country underscore txt instead, because we know that's available for everything. And we get 74, 161, 17. So that's a bit of a relief that we get the correct numbers there. So this is a good start. This gives us what's going to make for the first time that we're going to get here, but we've only just begun. So one of the things that we want to do to make sure that this is all nice and stable is to actually create a separate pivot table that'll give us the data for the number of people killed in all of the terrorist attacks across all of these years. So to do this, the easiest way to do it is to go back to the Data tab again, to click anywhere again within the data, go to Insert, and go to Pivot Table again. But instead of going to New Worksheet like we did last time, we're going to click on Existing Worksheet instead. And then we're going to click on this little button here that'll enable us to select the specific cell that we want the pivot table to begin in. So this will be the top left-hand corner for the new Pivot Table Explorer. So we click this button, we see that the little message window shrink down to this. We can then click on the sheet where we were playing before. And for this, we're going to select the cell A9. So we're going to click on the cell A9. We can see here that's referring to sheet 1, which is where we are here. And in row A, column A, row 9. And then we're going to hit enter or return, depending on whether you're using a PC or a Mac, and then hit OK. And so as you can see here, we now have a second pivot table within our Microsoft Excel document. What we want to do is repeat the beginning methods that we did to create this pivot table here for Bangladesh for the number of attacks, but we're going to do this now for the number of people killed. So we're going to start with the easy stuff first, put an I year into the columns, and then follow that up by putting the country underscore text into the rows box. Again, we're going to filter looking for Bangladesh. This time I'll use it the other way and just select it like this and filter it down to just having Bangladesh. One of the easy ways to find a variable, because there are many, many variables within the global terrorism database, is to just start typing in the variable name. In this case, the variable for the number of people killed is called nkill, which you can find by just typing in nk if you so wish. Once you've brought this up, you can click and drag it down to values. Before we go any further, one of the key things that I want to mention to everybody to make sure that we're all aware of is this little I button here. If we click this little I button here, we can see we've got different options for the different ways that we can calculate these numbers. For this, we actually do want what the default was, which was sum, but for some computers, the default will be count. And what this is going to do is add up all of the numbers that exist within the cells for nkill. So if there's 3 people that were killed in attack 1, 4 people that were killed in attack 2, then this number would give this would return a number of 7 for this. If we wanted to look at the count, then if we have one attack with 3 people, another attack with 4 people that were killed, then this would give us a count of 2. So one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we've got the sum for this and then hit OK. And this returns to us the number of people that were killed in each of the attacks across all of the years between 1995 and 2012. The next step looks a little bit redundant, but it will save you a lot of time and potential pain in the After Effects, particularly when you're going to be copying and pasting the resulting graph into Microsoft Word, because this will make the data stable in case you want to play around with these pivot tables later. So what we're going to do is we're going to select from A4 down to S5, and then go copy, and then paste it further down in the sheet here. And what we're going to do immediately, because we know this is the number of attacks, is to type in number of attacks to make it nice and easy for us with the next step. And next, we're going to just copy the entire row here from Bangladesh all the way across to 2002. Again, we're going to omit the grand total values here. And we're going to paste this in the row 20. And we're going to immediately change Bangladesh to the sum of people killed. Next, to turn this into a line graph, we're going to select all of these data here. We're going to go back to our trusty insert tab, and we're going to click on this line chart button here. For this, we're just going to select the first option because it's nice and easy. And as you can see here, when we click this, we get this line up here, which refers to the year here, because when Microsoft Excel is automatically trying to work out what these things are, it sees this as being a variable rather than the labels for the x-axis. So the first thing we're going to do is click on this blue line and hit delete. And as you can see, the graph itself immediately starts to recalibrate itself so that we can see the data more clearly. I don't like having titles within graphs. That's a personal preference. That's in line with many of the major journals. So that's why I get rid of that immediately. But as you can see, the next thing that we're going to need to take care of is the labeling for the x-axis here, which goes from 1 to 18. Instead of going from 1 to 18, we wanted to begin it in 1995 and go through to 2012. So to do that, what we're going to do is to click on this. There's a couple of different ways we can do this. One is through this tab box on the left. But instead of that, for this time, what we're actually going to do is go to select data. For here, we've got horizontal category axis labels. And what we can actually do to make things much easier is to click that little button there and then click on 95 and drag all the way across to 2012, hit enter, hit OK. And as you can see here, it's automatically changed our x-axis labels. Next thing that I recommend doing is adding in our axis labels for what we have here. Through this axis titles that we can get through to add chart element in the top left-hand corner here. Go to axis titles and go to primary horizontal. Again, always start with the easy stuff first. And we'll change this label to year, and then click off it. Go to add chart element, go back to axis titles, and go to primary vertical, which is our y-axis. And for this, we'll start off with the number of attacks. Number of attacks. We'll click off that. And now for the next thing, what we're going to do is we're going to click on the line. We're going to go back to add chart element. We're going to go to axes, and we're going to go to more axis options. And this is going to bring up this tab again on the right to give ourselves a second y-axis, so that way we don't have the number of attacks and the number of people killed on the same axis. What we're going to do now is click on this line here. And as you can see, this dialog box on the right-hand side immediately changes. So you can click this button here for the secondary axis. You can't see because it's obscured now, but if we X out of this dialog box here, we can now see that the secondary y-axis ranges between 0 and 100, and our primary y-axis ranges between 0 and 180. One quick way to double check that which variable is which is to look at the highest figure for both. The highest figure for the number of attacks in Bangladesh occurred in 1996, which was 161, which is larger than 100. So we know immediately the number of attacks is this axis here, which if we hadn't labeled it would be a way to diagnostically work out which one was which. So if we click on the right-hand secondary vertical axis here, and we go to add chart element, we can then go down to axis titles and go to secondary vertical, and that'll give us a secondary vertical title that we can click on here, which we'll call sum of people killed. From this point, the rest of the changes that I would make are purely aesthetic. I like to get rid of the cross lines to make things look a little bit cleaner. I like to go to format and click on this box here and put a black line around the lines here themselves and around the graph as a whole. I like to make all of the lines black and white, so that way we don't have to worry about color printing. Easiest ways to do this is to make it all the lines black themselves, and then to change the secondary line to dashes, which you can see come up here with the number of attacks and the sum of people killed to make it a little bit easier to interpret. And then we're basically done. And this is what how to make a graph that displays the number of attacks and the sum of people killed in Bangladesh. And if you go and compare this graph here to the original one from Bangladesh, you can see here that it looks very, very similar, although I changed things around to add a secondary y-axis. I hope this video was helpful. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you've got any other questions, please let me know. But otherwise, enjoy the rest of your night. Take care, everyone. Bye.